Welcome to If These Walls Could Talk. I'm your host and super CEO, Lindsay Liu. Joining me today is Natasha Falconi. Natasha has a long tenure in commercial real estate and in 2019 ventured out on her own to found Falconi Capital, a multifamily investment and management company based in South Florida that takes underperforming assets and transforms them into great places for tenants to live that also increases return on investment. Today, Natasha is going to walk us through the detective work that goes into fixing a leak in an unexpected place. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. It was awesome to be here, and love your detective work topics.
I know. For anyone that's dealt with water issues, and I'm guessing that's everyone in real estate,
Yeah.
I will say this probably comes with its own trigger warning. I feel like that's
Right.
the first thing I look for when I'm in a property is I look up at all the ceilings for the stains.
Right, exactly. You're absolutely right. It's what causes the biggest problems, right? So it's the thing that one of the things we really have to be careful with.
So give us a little bit of context about this property and then obviously, take us through your journey.
So I began in investing, and I started in the real estate world, and I've been in real estate for over 30 years now, and began investing in multifamily in 2019. Loved the multifamily space and just dove right into it. And I picked two specific markets in South Florida, which one of the markets which I lived at when I was young, which is and the other market which is very similar. And what happened in this particular situation that we're going to discuss is we have a 30-unit building that had from all of a sudden was leaking water out through a light fixture. And this apartment is on the first floor, and there was no bathroom or kitchen near it. So I was like, what on earth is this all about? And this can't be happening. Well, we were replacing our windows at that time. So what is your automatic thought? Okay, they didn't install the windows properly and it's coming through the windows and finding its way. So we have the window people come out. They say it's not us. I have engineers come out, can't figure it out. And then we figure out that it's coming in from the walkway of the second story. Now, I learned
How did you trace that back?
I'm sorry?
How did you trace that back? Because I've done my share of water testing before. How do you test the walkway of the second story?
Well, here's what's interesting, and it never occurred to me. Since the windows were happening at the same time, obviously it was the windows. It wasn't, we figured out. The way we determined it is I was going to remove, tile had been placed it's a catwalk building, and tile had been placed on the catwalk part of the second floor. And it was something that we were going to fix and replace because the grout was already being removed. It looked fine, except the grout was coming up from age, and we were going to replace it and modernize it. But we were going to do that last since there was work being done in the building. Well, I figure out just by looking, and some tiles were a little loose, and I was like, somebody bring me a crowbar. And I started removing tiles from the flooring, and we see that there was a floor under the floor. And what do I mean by that? The original slab that was there was supposed to be, I believe, like 6 inches, and it was actually 11 inches. So there were 5 inches worth of tile over.
People had just tiled on top
Tiled
over the years?
Concrete and sand, and I kept digging and digging and digging, and then I'm like, okay, we're stopping right here. I believe that was the problem because, water finds its way. Mm-hmm. I'm like, but how is it that it's coming in through the top of the walkway? Well, the building and the walkway hadn't been sealed because they kept pouring over tile, and it hadn't been sealed, and so we figured that out. But it gets better, because now I'm thinking, okay, we have 5 inches of additional aggregate, or whatever you want to call it, on top of this walkway. Now, what happens from a structural perspective? So, because now I'm like, okay, there's all these other problems. So we brought in an engineer that luckily told us this is like a super sound building. This is perfect. But yeah, remove it. So we start removing all of it was a tremendous job, because imagine removing, I don't remember how many linear feet it is, but I don't know, 200, 300 linear feet.
Oh, this is a
Not
long
more.
walkway.
It's a long walk.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a U-shaped.
Mm-hmm.
And we're 5 inches of removing of all of that. We removed it all and brought it back down to its original slab. When we get to the original slab, the fascia of the slab then becomes, it comes off because they had stuccoed it. So I don't know what the technical term was, but it was a prefab poured slab that had holes in it. And water had gotten in there as well. So now when we took that off, we had little waterfalls coming out of the little
Like
holes.
a lot of water we're talking about.
It was like slow and steady, but it was enough water. Luckily, we checked everything and everything was fine. There were no issues whatsoever. We had no rebar issues, thank God. But of course, in the meantime, while you're going through that problem, what do you think about? Like, you think about worst case scenario. We did have to spend more than we had originally budgeted for, but luckily we had a cushion set in all of our projections, which covered that, thank goodness, for conservative underwriting. And from that perspective, we were fine. But now we have like a bigger project, because we have to make sure that the entire slab is clear of water and able to seal that, make sure that no water's coming in from that person's unit any longer, or settled water anywhere else in any of the units that we don't see yet. We were able to clean that up, level out the top slab, and then I had a contractor come in and level out the floor, put waterproofing, painted it beautifully, sealed it, and now we are good to go.
Only after 900 steps.
Only after 900 steps. But you know, it's a lesson. It's when originally we chatted about me participating in your podcast, I'm thinking, well, what? I don't think I've had any major things happen. And then I'm thinking, what could have happened? And then I'm like, yeah, of course, major things happen all the time, except that you're doing them on the day to day, and it's part of the job that we signed up for. And I didn't necessarily see it that way, but now when we're revisiting it, it's like, okay, that was a big deal.
You're like, I did that project.
I did that. That was a big deal. After all,
it's funny. Those types of projects, I feel like you're like, it gives you the confidence to be like, I know how to deal with that. But at the same time, you're like, I never want to do it again.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And now, of course, I look at catwalks very differently than I did in the past.
So was that moment when you're pulling up the tile, is that like HGTV demo day moment that you're like, hand me the crowbar?
There's no, okay, I will admit I have a bag of tools in my car all the time, because sometimes you never know. And luckily there's a crowbar in that bag that I was able to go pull. I wasn't waiting for anybody. I was pulling those tiles up because I wanted to see what was going on there.
It's your building.
Yeah. And yeah, so yes, actually, it was a total HGTV moment.
I hope you put a hard hat on just for the show of it.
I wish I would have recorded what I was doing. I wish I would have.
Now you know these stories are worth saving.
That's a good point. When it happens, everybody stop, go get the cameras.
So you had, you had water coming through one unit.
Yes.
How did you make sure that it hadn't gotten into others? Because I think water is such a tricky thing where it's like you can just be sitting there and now you have mold and it's just such a disastrous thing to have.
That's a great question, because it's the concrete slab. Mm-hmm. It's a concrete slab and it has like holes in it, like a cylinder all the way in, and we were able to see and make sure that there's no penetration. It was only there because there was an electrical outlet there, so it had found its way. It was like perfect. Everything was perfectly aligned in that particular unit. Thank goodness, because then we may have never seen
May
it.
not have found it.
Yeah,
And then and then you'd be poking holes everywhere. And
exactly. So it worked out perfect. You could see how it was lined up.
excellent. And it sounds like, was this one of your earlier projects, that like one of your kind of
No, it
first
was
projects, or?
a project that we purchased in December of 2022.
Okay.
So this is
So
a
by now
recent.
you're seasoned.
There's a recent story. Yeah, but you're never seasoned for something like that if you've never experienced it.
So now you have all of your water experts, though,
I
like
have all.
on speed dial, ready to go.
Yes, I had wonderful, incredible structural engineers, super fabulous, that came out on a whim and just came out to the project quickly, and great contractor that helped with the with the waterproofing and the ceiling and the painting. And so yeah, I'm very fortunate. Great vendors or contractors.
For folks that haven't yet dealt with a leak yet, who should you have on your roster when you see water coming
Well,
from
I
somewhere?
see this is like a little unique because it's a leak, you think plumber. I would say the first thing you need to have is you need to have a great plumber and a great electrician, period. And it's important that there are people that you know, that you treat them well, so that there are people that will come and help you when you really have an emergency. But in this particular case, I didn't need a plumber because it was water, but there were no plumbing issues. So at that point is when I call my window vendor and contractor came out, and he was fabulous because he immediately came to try to troubleshoot it because we were in the process of all of these installations. So I would say I would make a more than a leak in this particular case. It was outside the plumbing world. I would say make sure you just hire really great professionals. And sometimes you make mistakes because it happens, but develop relationships with them because that will make a difference when you do have an emergency.
Right. They'll be there when you call.
They'll be there for you. Exactly.
They're willing to troubleshoot, even if it isn't their issue. It makes a big difference.
That's right. Hire great people and pay them on time. Pay them fast.
Pay them fast, not just on time, fast. You heard it from Natasha. You're going to have so many vendors calling you now.
I would love it. I love it.
Have you had any other mystery leaks in other properties, or was this
no,
by far the most
goodness.
memorable?
Thank goodness. The rest of the leaks are your typical situations that just, happen.
Yep.
No major water issues. Thank you.
The facade is always a tricky thing. I feel like I've dealt with roofs and facade issues with leaks, and it travels.
Yeah.
So
Water
even though it's coming from one area,
exactly.
It could absolutely be coming from the complete other end.
It looks for its lowest point. That's exactly right.
Yep. Follows gravity, and you don't know exactly where the slope is inside things. Very frustrating. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. If anyone wants to learn more about you or about how to solve a mystery leak, how can people get in touch with you?
Oh my gosh. I don't know, but thank you for the credit on the mystery leak. But of course, anyone that would love to chat about multifamily or investing in multifamily, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. My handle is Nat Falconi. And on my website, falconi-capital.com. DM me, or shoot me, or go on my website and shoot me a message, and I'd love to chat with you, with anyone that's interested.
I can attest that you are very responsive on all the channels. Thank you for that. And I'm sure your tenants appreciate that too.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, that's today's episode of If These Walls Could Talk. Super is the AI-powered communication and workflow tool for property managers. To learn more about Super, visit us at www.hiresuper.com. To share a story you have for a future episode, email us at hello@hiresuper.com.